Hey folks, I'm here with Ronan Kelly with Adtran. Ronan, how are you today, sir?
Zach, I'm really, really good. Delighted to have the opportunity to chat with yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So Ronan, why don't we start off with what's your role at Adtran?
I'm Adtran's Chief Technology Officer for the Europe and Middle East regions.
Very cool. And if you were to summarize Adtran's product portfolio in a couple of succinct sentences, what would you say?
I think what really sets our portfolio apart from the competition that's out there comes down, at least for me, it comes down to three key words.
Okay.
First is simplicity.
Yep.
Our solutions are really, really easy to deploy, so that makes it much easier for the operators to attract in staff with a lower skill level, but deploy very, very cost effectively and very quickly.
Yep.
They're flexible, so that means they can use a very small portion of our portfolio to cover off the vast majority of their deployment use cases.
Yep.
And they're efficient. So they're really, really effective at lowering the energy consumption bills of the operator, but also because they're simplified down to appliance-like devices, that allows the inventory levels to be reduced when service providers are procuring that equipment, when they're stocking for that equipment, and also when they're sparing for that equipment as well.
Very cool. Now, in the U.S. here, we've got a lot of federal subsidy coming our way in the form of the BEAD program, $42 billion to connect every American to the internet.
Billion with a big B.
Yeah, and a B for a big, big mission.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so you've experienced something similar in Europe with government funding.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and what were some of the lessons learned that Adtran is now prepared to not recreate in the U.S. here?
You're absolutely correct. We have seen this movie before in Europe.
Yeah.
There were a number of targets set down by both the European Commission, but also at a local government level. The likes of the UK government had a lot of targets. A lot of them were targeting towards 2025 for completion of fibre builds and gigabit coverage. Really, really good for catalyzing the market and driving momentum for service providers, both existing but also new entrants to come into the market and start building out the fibre infrastructure. But the challenge that emerged as a result of that was the whole parallelism.
Yep.
All of a sudden we'd gone from markets that were doing modest levels of fibre deployment to all of a sudden we saw an explosion in the number of operators building out fibre infrastructure in parallel. So what we saw was huge upward pressure on the need for skilled labour resources, people who knew how to design fibre networks, how to build fibre networks, how to do splicing, people who knew how to deploy optical equipment onto those networks and troubleshoot that equipment, people who knew how to do high quality in-home installations for the customers who were purchasing the services there.
Sure.
So as a result of that, labour costs started to skyrocket very, very quickly because it was a limited labour pool. It took time to bring the knowledge and education up to the level that was needed so that they could start to bring scale to these deployments. And even today, as I'm talking to you here and now, the industry is still suffering from that.
Sure.
We saw that here recently. We were at the Adtran campus, obviously, for the Broadband Summit.
Yeah.
And there was a poll taken of all the operator attendees. There was over 300 attendees in the room. And the number one problem they all cited as the biggest risk to their deployment targets is labour shortages.
Sure.
The ability to attract the necessary skills to design, build, and deploy these networks.
Now you guys have a pretty sophisticated certification curriculum and testing and the way to educate. Let's say we're going to take an unskilled worker and now let's give them a role to connect America through this BEAD funding. How is Adtran preparing that unskilled worker and getting them up to speed if they were to embrace a new role and try and help in that cause?
Well, over and above the fantastic training and certification programs that we have here,
Yeah.
where we've put a huge amount of effort into is designing the complexity out of the products.
Yep.
We have a whole range of new optical line terminal equipment that the operators will deploy in their central office or in their street cabinets. And we've stripped out all of the complexity with those so they're a simple appliance. So some of the simple things that you needed as baseline education, things like anti-static handling to stop you blowing up line cards when you install them in a chassis system.
Yep.
Things like, correct alignment when installing line cards in a chassis system because you might bend pins, for example. That's all gone now.
Awesome.
This is a simple appliance. All you need to know how to do is use a screwdriver to deploy these solutions. They're automatically discovered by the management system. Configurations are automatically pushed down to them. So we're really moving from field engineers.
Yep.
Probably below a technician grade is needed now at this point to do that deployment.
Wow.
So that really allows the service providers to tap into a much larger labor pool
Yep.
to get these networks deployed and built.
Adtran ease of deployment, and you know, when you have just a huge mission of trying to connect every American, it needs to be easy, simple, and quick to deploy.
Exactly. That simplicity, flexibility, and efficiency is core to everything we're doing.
I love it. Beautiful. Now, Adtran has had a long, long history of innovation. And when you come to this campus here, you look at the patent wall and you can just say, wow, these are innovators, these are engineers.
Yes.
What are some of the most recent innovations you're most proud of that the world needs to know about?
Over the last, it's actually been an 8-year journey, but we really commercialized it about 4 years ago initially, has been this transition towards open disaggregated optical line terminal, or OLT solutions. And the openness has been the key to that.
Yep.
So we've tried to very deliberately move away from the sharp tactics that we see employed across the industry by different vendors of trying to lock operators in.
Yep.
Instead, Adtran's opened up its portfolio so that our customers stay with us because they want to, not because they're locked into our solutions. And that openness, the implementation of open hardware abstraction layers on all the hardware that we deploy, the partnership with software stacks like OpenSync, etc., within the industry, really give our customers an awful lot of choice. If they're not happy with how Adtran is performing, whether that's from an innovation point of view, whether that's from a cost point of view, whether that's from a quality point of view, they're not tied to us. They can move very, very easily. So when you see the customers that come to Adtran, you see the 300 of them that are at the event here this week, they're here because they want to be here, not because they have to be here.
Awesome. Love it. Well, there you go, folks. Ronan Kelly. Ronan, you're a gentleman. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.